Right, today we're going to be finishing up traffic calming. We got this started last time, and this is the second piece of that, our second series in traffic calming. Again, traffic calming, if we remember, there's two major categories of techniques, and one is for reducing speeds, and the other one is for reducing volumes. Both things can be considered as traffic calming, and we'll talk about that. Last time we talked about passive traffic calming methods, and we've got the other two pieces, which is psychological and physical, which are coming up today. So psychological, kind of what it sounds like, is we are getting into the driver's head and we are trying to trick them in, well, sometimes trick them, just make them feel a little less secure about what they're doing or draw attention to a potential problem and get them to slow down. And so that's our psychological type of techniques. And so the first one, it's similar to one of the passive ones, which was that speed limit sign we had last time with the radar thing. But this is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And why isn't this passive? Because you have to push the button to turn this thing on. This is not a passive device. It doesn't just sit there all day and do its own thing. These flashing lights, you can see these, they call them wigwag, these alternate turning on and off on both sides. It attracts your attention. Sometimes we put little LEDs around the border of the sign. Okay, that's great. They only light up when someone's there. So that's the psychological piece of it, right? Someone pushes the button, pedestrian pushes the button, boom, these lights come on, and he's like, oh, hey, I don't usually see those on. I'm going to slow down. Well, hopefully you say that. And being, if it is a truly marked crosswalk, you have to wait for a pedestrian anyway. So maybe you see that come on, you're like, well, must be somebody there. I'm going to slow down and get ready to stop. And for that, well, we hope that's what people are thinking when they see the lights come on. All right, for that, we say that one of the advantages here is it's cost effective. It's only $5,000, right? You may think, well, that sounds like a lot of money. Wouldn't we like to have $5,000? Yeah, but for a sign system like this with batteries and a solar panel and all that, $5,000 is really cheap for government type things, infrastructure type pieces. All right, so just keep that in mind. For that, the disadvantage is we do have to depend on somebody has to push the button, right? If they don't push the button, it's not going to work. No, most people know to do that, but if you were impatient or didn't bother pushing the button, you can run across. It doesn't help you, right? And there's always maintenance involved. These things get knocked off, especially stuff that close to the road. Someone's going to eventually misalign their vehicle and take down your crosswalk sign. All right, for that. Another one, speaking of crosswalks, another one is the enhanced visibility crosswalks, which is we do something different with our crosswalk. We make it, we put colored pavement in. That was really popular 10, 15 years ago. Doesn't last real long, so that has lost some popularity. But this is the Indianapolis Cultural Trail down in Indy. And so they've got special pavement colors and inlaid colors into the asphalt here. These crosswalks, you can tell which side's the bike and which side's supposed to be pedestrians, and apparently he doesn't think he's either one, so he's right in the middle for that. Here's, sometimes they call this a ladder crosswalk. For there, it's very bold and very bright. You can obviously see where it is versus more the standard one, which is all that's required are these two lines for crosswalks. So this would be a ladder type. Down here is the striped bar one, which is called zebra crossings, right? And the trick on this one is they've got embedded LED lights in the road on either side of the crosswalk. So that really highlights it, especially in these low lighting situations, right? This is a nice kind of a probably shopping street, and so they don't want a lot of glaring bright light through here, and it may not be this traffic signal. We're not sure. Can't see behind it here. If it's a mid-block crossing, having these light up when someone's there is going to be huge to make it safer for pedestrians, right? And it may be you think if you're in the crosswalk, hey, I can do what I want. I don't have to look for cars because I'm a pedestrian. I'm in my crosswalk. Well, that's a false sense of security. You should still be careful because not all the drivers are paying attention, right? Especially since cell phones have taken off and all the distracted driving is not uncommon for people looking down and not notice you in the crosswalk. So be careful through that. 3D crosswalks, the one I've never seen in person. But if you know, sometimes they paint these murals on the sides of buildings and it looks like a car or something coming out of the side of the building. Same idea. If you're an artiste, you can come out here and you can paint the crosswalk in such a way that from a certain angle where the driver would be coming up on it, 20 feet back, it looks like it's floating in 3D, and it's just using different colors and different shades. It makes it look like it's floating, and you're like, what the heck? And then you slow down. That's the whole point of psychological traffic calming, is to kind of freak the driver out, right? Take them out of the security zone, show them something they haven't seen. It looks a little unusual, or it's very eye-catching. Definitely get your attention. I will slow them down. Now, this one's in Europe somewhere, not sure where, but it's. I've seen a couple presentations on using it. Yet, like I say, never yet seen one in real life. Be kind of cool. Now, from a former government employee standpoint, I'd say maintaining this is going to be a bear, because even the standard zebra stripes, that's a lot of work every year to come back out there and restripe those. And now you've got multiple colors and you got to get it lined up just right. Yeah, it's going to be a little harder, but it really pops up, doesn't it? It slowed me down. If I saw that. Edge striping is another one. We saw a little of this earlier when we, last time when we got started in this. And just by adding in these lane lines, right, it doesn't really mean this is a bike lane or anything like that. They just striped it. Stripe's fairly cheap. It's about 50 cents a foot to put a stripe in. They put stripes on both sides. It narrows the road down, makes the road feel narrower to you, and should reduce speeds. Right? We looked at width of lanes last time and how it relates to speed. Here's another one. There's no center line in it, but they just put in these extra lines. It is a two-way street, and that removes some of that feeling that you're protected and you can just go as fast as you want. Now we've narrowed the road and took the center line out. Right? It feels more like a narrow back street, and you're going to drive a little slower because you have to be more cautious, right? Or this one where we put these little zigzags on the side. And again, it's something people aren't ready for and aren't used to, and boom, there it is. And psychologically, hopefully, they'll slow down. They're like, hey, wait a minute, what's this? All right. And that's our goal with that. And again, so some of the combined effects here, right? Or if you make a driver feel a little bit more closed in, that things are narrower or a little unusual, they're going to drive slower, right? And the same thing can be done with medians. And we've talked about divisional medians and channelization medians before. While they're doing that, here's a divisional one, right? Nicely dividing that road. It also can give you that feel, that narrowing feel, which slows drivers down, right? And a lot of communities like them because you can put trees on them down the center, nice landscaping features on the end. Got to make sure you don't block sight distance, though, as people come up. But again, that gives you that narrowed roadway. It's physically narrowing it, actually. But even though you may still have a 12-foot lane, which is what you had before over here, it feels tighter because it's not. You don't have the entire other lane completely open to you as you approach, right? It's not a feeling of openness through there. So even though it didn't affect your lane width, it does give you a psychological sense that you're closed in a little more, and maybe you want to close down or slow down a little bit. All right, back to active things. And so this is sometimes called a hawk beacon, or a pedestrian hybrid beacon is its official name. And again, at a crosswalk and probably mid-block crossings, not usually a traffic signal. It wouldn't be a traffic signal because you have other walk symbols and lights there. This is a mid-block crossing, which are the most dangerous type for pedestrians. And this is a really active traffic signal. It's not just the flashing yellow lights we had before. This is red lights, and I think they alternate when they come on. I've never actually seen one of these in person either. Now, they're newer, and here's how it starts, right? There's nothing, and then when a pedestrian pushes the button, it starts with a yellow blinking light, and it continues to blinking, and then all of a sudden you get the dual red, and there's a pedestrian there, and then it starts alternating lights, I think, to say it's and a flash, which says you could proceed with caution if it's clear. So it's not as strict of a make sure you stop, don't you dare cross this point. All right, so flashing red, like if you come to a four-way stop that has a flashing red beacon, right, it doesn't mean you have to stay there forever. It means you can eventually go. And once it turns off completely, then you just cruise on at whatever you were doing before. Right. So one of the disadvantages here is drivers just aren't familiar with them. Right. You know, I've never seen one in person do it. The other thing is cost. These are going to cost a lot of money, right? Having crews come out and install all of this stuff, and you've got buttons, and it's like signal work. It's probably going to be on the order of $60,000 or $70,000 to put one of these in, and then you have to maintain it, right? A traffic signal costs about $150,000. You've got two poles, you've got lots of lights, you got lots of wiring and all that. You're going to be probably 30-40% of what a full traffic signal would cost for this hybrid beacon. And again, they're so rare that I don't know drivers are going to, well, okay, they understand what a double red. I think, okay, I should probably stop. The rest of these, I'm not sure they're going to understand that right off. But it is allowed. So that's like I say, a hawk symbol or a pedestrian hybrid beacon. For traffic calming. And then that's okay, that is installed, that is physical. But now what we really mean by physical is we are changing how you're driving by actually introducing physical barriers to what you want to do, or things you could hit or have to drive over are physical pieces, right? Other things that did exist physically in the real world. This is things that are physically in the road. And would affect driving, right? For that. So one I wouldn't have thought of to start with is on-street parking, right? If you think about it, places that have on-street parking right next to the lane you're driving in, you're going to probably drive slower because people are driving in and out of those spots, right? It is right next to where you are. People are waiting for a spot to pull in, so forth and so on. It slows everything down. And that is traffic calming. I mean, exactly. Part of it is psychological. You have those cars next to you, you feel a little more closed in, but more of it is that cars are slowing down either to get, or they're pulling into your travel and you have to wait for them, or they're pulling into a parking space and you're, again, waiting on them, but they're already in the lane for that. So that's an advantage of on-street parking, right? Now they do have a safety issue, especially for pedestrians or bikes riding by right on the outside. People open their door, so that's a downside. And them pulling in and out. Sometimes, like here, this car is parked on red, right? Shouldn't be there. And if that's leading up to a crosswalk, that's a safety issue for pedestrians as well. In that, and it is less efficient, but less efficiency is kind of the name of the game in traffic calming. So it is a disadvantage, but these roads aren't designed for efficiency, right? We have other roads that we're designing for efficiency, and these aren't. Just a little bit of a little side notes here on parking. So we've got front end angle parking, which is your standard, right? You're going to drive along here and you're just going to pull into one of these spots. You drive along here, you're going to pull in. When you leave, you back up out into the car traffic and then you move forward. All right. So that's our front end angle. We've got issues as the sight line, right? From the driver's point of view, it's really hard to see past these other parked cars. Someone may be zipping along and you can have a crash, right? This reminds me of Gellerston, right? If you drive in nose first there by the solar observatory thing, and then you back out, right? All those daggone commuter students are ripping through there at 40 miles an hour, and you can have a wreck, right? Sorry, I'm teasing. It's not all commuter students. It's during faculty as well come ripping through that last bit there around that circulatory road. And you can't see them well, right, if you're backing out. And that's a problem, which is why I back my car in if I have the chance in the morning. Back when we used to be on campus, anyway. All right, here's another problem. This car, he wants to turn in here. Sometimes it's allowed, right? You got to check and make sure that it's not prohibited to cross the center line like that to pull in there, but it's usually allowed. And all these people waiting, it's an unexpected stop location, and you could have a wreck. Someone could rear end you for that, which does happen fairly, if it's not someplace they would normally expect to see someone, it does happen. All right, so the other option is, and I've seen this It's a little more progressive. I saw some of this out in Seattle some years ago. I saw it in Australia. Australia was big on this. They call it rear to curb parking, and they spell curb K-E-R-B. How's that? And they probably say rear to curb. So here's a back end parking, and okay, that seems a little weird. A lot of people don't like backing up or backing in, but then again, you have to back up to get out if you drove in forward. So lining up is a little harder, but hey, if you got a rear view cam like my car does now, it's a lot easier. You can make sure you're lined up for it. So now car comes across, and your driver, this one who wants to pull out, can easily see the approaching car. Let's see that again. All right. It can see past these other vehicles, and it's much easier, which is, again, like when I back in at Gellerson, yeah, I can much sooner as I begin to pull out, see someone hauling down that road and stop in time before I'm way out in there, and it could cause a wreck, right? And also, if you do want to cross to park, you're doing a U-turn, right? And it's maybe a little bit better, right? maybe a little bit better, maybe not great either. But you instead of waiting to get into a spot and holding up cars, right? You're going to do a U-turn. Now you're going that direction. If you've got room and your car can do a U-turn there, I'd still say it's a little bit dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it. But you're continuing to move then, and then you can back in, and you're not parked over here as long waiting to find this spot and potentially causing a wreck in a rear end. So that's rear to curb, back in angle parking, as we call it here in the U.S. All right, for that. And another option is rumble strips, right? You see these out in rural situations. You can also throw them in to an urban situation, right? So if a driver gets near one of these and is veering off the lane a little bit, it creates a noise, right? And you can feel it, a vibration. And again, it wakes them up. They hopefully slow down and, oh, what's that? And slow down. So I haven't seen these used very often in urban settings. It is a possibility for traffic calming for that. This one I do see a lot, which is curb extensions and changing the radius on the corner. And this is a small picture, but maybe a better one of curb extensions all the way around. Right? This is a good example of showing one quadrant of the crosswalk through there. Right? This normally would have just gone straight through up here, but they extended this out. It makes the walk, the crosswalk shorter for pedestrians, which is always good. You're out in traffic for less time, and also it gives you that restricted feeling again. But it's a physical device; it's a physical barrier, so it's a good thing, right? We did a streetscaping project in downtown Elkhart and put in some curb extensions like this and put planters on them, right? And I mean, literally a month later, somebody plowed right into one of them, and it was a big issue. So, yeah, I don't know how you didn't see that, but okay, whatever. It definitely calmed traffic, right? It really calmed that car down, but it was an older lady, and okay, so we felt bad. It was, I mean, it's like a 3-foot tall planter, right? This was not a hidden thing. It was a great big planter, curb in front of it, whatever. All right, so here's an example. This used to be the radius back here. They've infilled all this and made a tight radius, so you have to go slower, right? Turning roadway, right? We were talking about what speeds people be coming through on a turning roadway. Well, this is a small radius, right? Here's a smaller radius out here versus back here. You're going to have to go slower, and hopefully then you will see the people in the crosswalk as you come through. So that's curb extensions and making those radiuses tighter. Now, if you've got an expected number of trucks, you aren't going to want to do that. It's going to be a mess for that. But if it's all residential local area, or a lot of walkers, people walking through there and not big trucks, it's a good option. It does make it safer. All right. So speed humps, lumps, and tables. And bumps. You can throw bumps in there too, the older style ones, right? You do see these more often, and they're probably one of the first traffic calming devices out there in more of its bump form, right? It used to be near a lot of playgrounds, they would have a traffic bump. What are the differences? This is a hump, right? They're just bigger, they're a little gentler. You don't have to go 5 miles an hour over it. 20 is probably going to be fine, and they're nicely marked. And so forth, and that's a speed hump. I think late 90s. This was the direction people were going with vertical deflection in the roadway. All right, through there. Here's the lump one, or sometimes they just call it a speed hump with that's been bisected through here, and so they leave a little gap in it. Sometimes, a lot of times, we'll leave the gap over by the curb, right? And why would we leave a gap at the curb? Right, for drainage, right? We don't want to, we add these later to the road. We don't want to interrupt the drainage pattern, so we leave that over there. Over here, sometimes you line up so people can go right down the middle and avoid it, but they still have to line up, and it still slows them down, but it's not as invasive, I guess. It doesn't move the car as much. That's not usually how we do it. The main reason you would leave a gap like that is for bicycles. And usually it's more over here on this side. I haven't seen one directly in the center like that before. But I've seen gaps over here near the edge or the last 2 feet over here. Now, if there's no one parked there, then cars will drive over right on the edge. You get 2 of their wheels to go through the gap, right? Versus there now. And like I said, I wouldn't want to space these too close to what your car wheels can do, because everyone's going to try to get that just perfectly lined up and not have to slow down. The speed table works really well getting these mid-block crossings. You raise the entire crosswalk up 4 inches or so above the standard roadway, and all the way across. Then you can't miss that. You're going to have to slow down, and it gives you a dual purpose of you're letting people walk across what would have been the top of the hump, right? For that. So that's all good. The downside is being a physically installed long-term barrier. It's going to also slow down fire trucks and emergency vehicles. It's not, as long as you don't put a lot of these on there, it's not the end of the world for that. But that is a thought. Some people are against it based on that, right? Intersection tables is you take this idea of the raised crosswalk and you apply it to an entire intersection. And it's hard to see, but where this crosswalk is coming in here, the brick part and that brick part, that is all, it ramps up to this lintel across here, which is a little bit higher. Like in the center of this intersection is all 3 or 4 inches higher than all the surrounding road around it for that. And what that does is, you're not going to blow through the traffic signal on green near as much as you might have if it was a nice flat plane through there. And it works on both streets, so there's a good thing, right? It's got a moderate speed reduction. It is expensive to add all that in, more pavement, more concrete and all that. Now, once it's in place, it's not that much extra maintenance. Now, they're using brick pavers, and that's going to be a maintenance problem over time. Right? They don't have to be. They like the rumble effect here, and it's more of a visual effect. And so you could probably just use a concrete like this guy, right? They just use concrete ramp there. That's going to be a lot more durable than a brick paver tends to be. Pavers by themselves are usually pretty durable, but they pop up a little bit. They get caught by snow plows, and they can start to degrade. Once one comes loose, and you got trouble, right, for that. Next up are chicanes and barrier medians, and this is a chicane. To think of it as it's tricking you, right? It's a tricky little thing, and it's making you shift over here and then back around. So it's creating this horizontal deflection in your path, right? And maybe not a lot, but this just visually, as you see this coming up, you're like, whoa. And so you're going to veer over here a little bit, then you have to veer back for this one. Sometimes if it's a one-way road, it'll look more like this. You're just kind of moving the entire road back and forth, what would have been within the right-of-way, which normally would have been straight through there. And so that works pretty good on slowing vehicles down for that. And you got to be careful where you're at with these, so you aren't impacting right in front of someone's driveway. That's probably not a good thing, right? You can see here they did gap it, right? They didn't install it right up to the old curb. They didn't take that curb out because this is their drainage path. All right, so remember, drainage is important. So they maintain that drainage. This was retrofitted, so you saw cut this, and then you put in this curb and then a little bit of grass, and everything's great. And then you have a matching island over here. They work better if you've got something pushing you one direction and back over a little bit. Right? It looks like someone rubbed it with their tire, right? Doesn't that look a little black there? So maybe it's chicaned a little more than they expected. for that. And then you can also narrow a road down and make it better just by taking a whole lane out, right? This is the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. That's what they did. They narrowed a lot of these one-way pair roads in downtown Indianapolis. This is over on just east of downtown. I remember, I can recognize those apartment buildings there. And they just took an entire lane of that road out for that and turned it over to peds and bikes through that. So that really enhances the safety of that for peds and bikes on there. There's a big quality of life feeling about that if you can get out and have a nice path you can walk on for that. It is expensive to do this. There's maintenance going to be involved, and you may limit some access for emergency vehicles, but I think that's more of a minor piece for that. Next up, we got diverters, and this is physically not letting you drive straight through. That's really what a diverter is doing. We're diverting traffic going around this way or going around this way, completely cutting it off. And so that's really good for reducing traffic volumes. Also, that deflection is going to slow down people. So that gives you a lot of speed reduction as well. And they can get pretty creative with this, right? Here's a nice diagonal one. Again, the bicyclists can get through the center here, but cars can't. And so and peds are fine. They still have full access straight through in both directions. It's just cars. So that's all we've done is we limited cars. Now here's a modified one where you could still turn right, come in here and go that way if that was important. And who knows what's over in this direction for that. But this way you can't go straight through, and you can't go straight through there. Now someone's going to be creative and try that probably, but generally not, right? And this person definitely is not going straight through. And then you've got a four-way diverter, which is nobody can go straight through, but you can all make right turns, right? You can that's all anyone can do is make a right turn here. And so there's your four-way diverter through that. And here's some pictures of these islands look like. Here's the standard first one diverter, which these two roads kind of just continue along but not go through straight. It is a chance to make them pretty, right? People put trees on this and grass and flowers. Aesthetically, they're very nice. Here's the sidewalk still connecting across. So pedestrians, and there's a ramp here so the bicyclists can get through too. It doesn't limit their access. And then down here's this four-way one. Everybody can make a right turn, and that's it. Here it even says right turn only, right? That's all you can do. And then let's plant some stuff in the middle. And again, this is really popular in Seattle to plant things in the middle of any of these traffic calming devices, right? And then outside of that, even one step further is you just plain close the road. You just say, it's dead end. I'm not even going to redirect you onto somewhere else. I'm just going to end the road, right? And so here's our dead end sign with an object marker on it. And yeah, you can see the road over there, but you can't get there. All right, you're going to have to go back where you came. And hopefully you saw the no outlet sign coming up, and you didn't come this far before you decided to turn around for that. And here's a kind of a partial closure one, right? People coming from this direction can't get through. That whole side of the road is closed off, but you're still letting people on this side come through. So one direction, whatever direction that is only, can get through that. And so, yeah, you still have to think about this can be more expensive. You're closing off all the way across, removing pavement usually. As part of that, you got to worry about drainage, and you're diverting traffic through here and calming traffic, reducing volumes, which could also be a pain to the residents, right? They also want to get out. I live here and I want to go over there. Now I have to go around the block to get there. So keep that in mind. It's not always a win for the residents either, even though you probably made them sign a petition to improve the construction of it. Another way to reduce speeds, mostly, is convert a road. This is a one-way pair. Everything is going straight through. Convert this into a two-way road, and it just feels narrow, right? You're narrowing it down. You got some bike lanes out in here. You got a two-way left turn in the middle, right? All the striping, all that, and two-way traffic makes people feel a little less safe, and they're going to slow down as well for that. So this is a bigger issue, right? If you're going to be converting one ways into two ways, that is hard to do. It's going to take a lot of planning and some money, right? City of South Bend did this 3 or 4 years ago. It was a big project. They had some issues. They definitely had a lot of issues. And then they did this throughout there in downtown. And if you ask me, they really screwed it up. But hey, you know, it was popular. They call it. And if you call something smart streets, then how can you be against it, right? So roundabouts, oh, we love roundabouts, right? And they do a good job, again, of reducing generally the speeds on the roads, right? People are coming up and they're going to be coasting through here a little bit more, and there's some delay induced in that as well, right? For that. Now they do operate traffic-wise better than the small traffic circle, which was the neighborhood version of it, but you're also not going to slow people down as much as a traffic circle does because they're so abrupt. You can't do it. These are nice and smooth, and you're going to flow through here, right? For that. There's a lot of other innovative intersection ideas you can do. This is the Michigan left, sometimes called the J-turn option. I wish these pictures were a little bit bigger, but you can't turn left here at the intersection. You have to go down here. If you were coming from this direction, you have to go through the intersection and then turn left down here. And that's why there's this bulge down here, which is supposed to look like apparently the letter J in some instances. That's the J-turn. And you come back, and now you can turn right and go this way. If you're coming here and you want to turn left, you have to go past this, come down here, turn through that, come back, and then turn right through there. So that's, they still work. You can still get your effective left turn done, but you have to go through, which is much more efficient at the signal here, and then turn left back here. It does slow that down. If that annoys you, you'll take a different route, which is a good thing in traffic calming terms. Now you could also, you put roundabouts at either end of that. Right, you could do some crazy stuff here about preemptive channelized left that you turn kind of in advance of these people coming this way, and you actually move them all the way over. Here you're crossing the oncoming lane, and now they can do kind of more of a free flowing left when you get the green through here. Now these are rare, super rare. I've seen them in publications. I've never seen one in real life. Not that I'm an expert on any of this, right? So here's some of these traffic calming measures and how they work, and here's some of the numbers on just how effective they are. And this also tells us what category they're in: psychological, physical, and so forth, and which category classification they fit into. Is it speed reduction or is it volume reduction? All right. And so here's this cute little I guess, rubric of which type of traffic calming do you want to use. Well, here you can see, well, I want speed reduction, and horizontal deflection works to a degree. This is the percent speed reduction, okay? But vertical deflection, if I got the right kind of humped or bumped table, that works even better. Look, you can see the higher percentage. So this is a good way to check that out and see the effectiveness of each and get some ideas for that through there. This is a table, again, I think it's published in that FHWA guide. This originally came from Sacramento, showing where it's appropriate to install these different options, right? And so if you're going to do speed humps and lumps, okay, that's it's really appropriate for speed, kind of appropriate for, it's still appropriate for traffic volume, only half to reduce accidents, which are now called crashes. It only helps a little bit with pedestrian safety. It does not reduce noise. Okay, actually, it's worse for noise. Yeah, counterproductive is the X. Right, people slow down and they start up again. That's extra engine noise. Both slowing down and starting up creates more noise, and then a smooth movement through. So again, this is a guide to help you know when's the best time to install and what type of feature, right? So maybe you want to reduce speed, you know which options reduce speed, and now you come over here and can see, here's speeding, so that helps. right? But does it have some counterintuitive effects? Do you have some secondary things you want to also achieve? There's a good way to look at that. And here's the second part of that. And then they also break this down into residential versus non-residential. All right. So things that we've learned over time as engineers is engage the stakeholders, right? You don't want to just show up in somebody's neighborhood and start installing this stuff because maybe one person calls in a lot and complains. That's not enough. You really want to engage them, have community meetings, making people sign a petition to get it. That is not a bad way to go with that. People found that really useful in that. So that's engaging, right? They can't say they didn't know, and you can talk to them, and you can have them come to an informational meeting and so forth, and get that all worked out, right? Be careful about trying something brand new. That's if it's okay, it works great in Seattle, but is it really going to work well where I'm at? So know your environment and what's allowed, and you should, as a former government employee, I will say no. Get a feeling for how strongly your bosses who are elected are in favor of this idea, right? Because if people get mad and start calling, are they going to stick with it or are they going to cave in, right? So they have to have a stomach for, well, it's new. Should we take a chance? So make sure you're engaged with the government officials as well, elected officials. In this, because they're the ones getting the phone calls. Well, you do too in the end, but you want to be careful on that, right? And doing something totally weird and never seen before is a good way to get a lot of phone calls and people commenting what an idiot you are for that. And then these things aren't cheap, right? So make sure you've got the budget to do it, not only for the installation, but that you could maintain it, or that you have the staff available that you need to keep it maintained. Right. So that brings us to the end of traffic calming. And this is, again, originally a presentation we said last time by Dave Henkel down at CHA. This is his contact information, his email address, and his phone number. He did say, hey, if you're looking for a job in the eastern half of the U.S., and mostly transportation related, they do structures too, but structures related to transportation, I would say, bridges, right, and that sort, and environmental permitting, that sorts of things. So give him a call, right? So we thank him for putting this together originally and sharing it with us. Like I say, it's a good firm, lots of opportunities for jobs.